Welcome to Season 2 of Matt Makes Zach Watch Horror Movies. Now you may notice a drop in audio quality compared to previous episodes. You see, Matt has fallen into the Twilight Zone and can only communicate through the ether. But fret not, dear listener. You are still in store for all the same dreadful jokes, eerie impressions, and terrifying trivia. So, sit back, enjoy the show.
Leatherface, yellow Leatherface, red Leatherface. I'm too hard for this. He's burnt up like a weenie and his name is Fred.
I'm gonna watch a horror movie.
I've entered the Twilight Zone. You're listening to DJ Terra on Radio Slasher. You know, after that last recording, I'm starting to think Kai is the one who threw Matt into the Twilight Zone. Anywho, I sent George out to look for more recordings, so we got the bunker all to ourselves, listener. I've got the sweet tunes of the Soul Boy and the Doughboy queued up next just for you. This recording was dated September 27th, 2020, where the boys have a good old time with the return of the living dead. Stay tuned.
Hello, and welcome to Matt Makes Zach Watch Horror Movies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zay.
I made him watch a horror movie. What did we watch this week, Zach?
I just hit my knee on my desk.
Oh no!
Ah!
This better be staying in. This is gold.
We watched Return of the Living Dead.
Hell yeah, we did.
Oh, God.
You be alright?
I'm gonna return as the living dead.
Is rigor mortis setting in?
Yeah, it feels like it.
All right, Zach. Well, top of the pod here. We haven't done this alone in a while, so Zach, what'd you think of this movie?
It was fun. It was punks versus zombies.
Yeah.
It was like one of those ones. It was like, it is what it is. Like,
Yeah, it's just a good time.
yeah, it's not like nothing groundbreaking.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, I'm technically for the time.
Because they're zombies.
Yeah, it was early on in zombies, so
it was groundbreaking.
yeah,
Zombies
figuratively and literally.
I now know what Tarman is, so
Yeah, I love Tarman.
because I saw Tarman merch everywhere. I had no idea what it was.
Yeah, I still think it's crazy that you said that website doesn't say it's from Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah, so I buy a lot of my clothes from a site called Creepy Company, and they're really cool. You should check them out. But they have this entire line just called Tarman, and I had no idea what it was from. And I'm still confused because it's just Tarman TM. It's not like Tarman from Return of the Living Dead. It's just Tarman. He's his own entity.
I wonder if someone got the rights to like merchandising that character specifically, like it's the effects guy or something, maybe.
Yeah. I want to know more about the copyright behind Tarman.
I want to look into this company, Tarman TM.
Yeah, what are they about? They ship in barrels that they're not supposed to be.
Oh no. Well, I mean, you're already kind of diving into it, Zach, but it's time for America's favorite game show. Can you summarize that movie?
Ba-ba-da-ba. Oh wait, that's
Come on down.
That's John Cena.
Yeah, whatever. Same thing. Well, Zach, I mean, this is a podcast, so they can't see you. So,
God damn it, man!
You set me up for that one, man. Come on.
This is why it's been a second since it's been just us.
Because you were tired of my shit.
No, because when it's just us, we're stupid.
Yeah, Zach, I got bad news for you about us all of the time.
That's true. Specifically, when we watch a movie like this, or Body Bags or Creep Show, where it's
That's
like
the tone of all these movies. That's why they're great.
no, like not just the tone of the movie, but us after we watched a movie like this, we get in a specific mindset that's just
it just puts you in the right place, man. It's just a good time.
Oh yeah.
But you're stalling here, man. Let's see how fast you can summarize that movie.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Are you prepared?
Wait, let me
Can you do this?
Let me pull up my cast list here.
Stretch first, right?
There's a lot of names that are pretty cool.
Yep.
And they're not in order, so it's gonna be hard. They're not grouped by punk group and cemetery group.
There's overlap. It's fine.
Right.
All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, 3, 2, 1, and go.
So we open up medical supplies. We got our boy Freddie Dreddy. He's hanging out with his uncle Frank, who's showing him the ropes of how to be shipping bodies or something. But Frank's like, you know that zombie movie? It was real, and I have the bodies. And so they go to the basement.
Just
and,
like
yeah, and they go to the basement where there's a barrel, and what do you know? They open it and be stupid, and they get sprayed full of like zombie gas. So they get gassed up, and they lit. So then they gotta call Bert because they don't know what to do. Bert owns the place. Bert comes up. He's like, "You guys are dumb. Well, the movie killed the brain, so let him out." So they let him out, and it's just this man painted orange.
Yellow, thank you.
Who's just naked and his hair is shaved. And he looks like Freddie Freaker. If you don't know Freddie Freaker,
know what that is.
You need to look up Freddie Freaker.
Okay.
But Freddie Freaker jumps out because they called his number, and they pickaxe him to the head, and it doesn't kill him. And they're like, "The movie lied! Oh no!" So now they gotta go meet up with Bert's friend Ernie, and they gotta burn this guy. But cut to the best gang ever, Punk Gang. We got the leader. His name is Suicide. He's got all kinds of chains. And we got Scuzz. He's kind of nerdy, but he's like new wave. That's what Matt told me. We got Trash. She looks like Ronald McDonald. And we got Tina, who's Freddie Dreddy's girlfriend. We got Casey, who looks like every 80s lady ever. And we got Spider. He makes it to the end because he's got a sledgehammer and he's not fucking around. We got, was that all of them?
Yeah.
We got all of them. And they going to pick up their friend Freddie Dreddy from work, but they decide to get naked and hang out in the cemetery instead while they listen to cool music. And they burn Freddie Freaker after he's chopped him up in little pieces. And Ernie's the best character. He's just the friendly neighborhood mortician who knows all about dead bodies. And but they burn the body, the smoke goes up into the sky, and then lightning strikes and it rains the acid, and it brings all the zombies from the cemetery up. Oh no. And Freddie Dreddy and his uncle Frank, they start feeling sick, and zombies start at this point it's just zombies eating people. Paramedics come, they get eaten. Cops come because these zombies can speak, and they just keep calling for more backup. And then they keep eating the backup. And then Tarman kills Suicide, which made me really sad because I wanted to see Suicide fight some zombies. But Tarman goes brains, and then at some point the remaining few make it back there, kill Tarman, and call the number on the barrels. and which is the military, and they blow the place up, and the end.
4 minutes and 7 seconds.
I'm gonna cut that down for sure, but
my lap time then will make no sense to anyone, but just know the original was 4 minutes and 7 seconds.
oh, there's been other ones where it's like, oh, that was 7 minutes. Oh yeah, well, I cut that down to like 4 minutes because you're not gonna listen to me stammer for 7 minutes.
That's fair. But yeah, I should say up at the top, if you've been tired of me and my not loving every movie we've talked about recently, I'm back in it because I fucking love this movie, everybody.
Yeah, Matt was like, I want to have a good time. We're watching this. And I was like,
multiple
okay.
times while we were watching it, I just went, man, this movie rules.
The second I saw the gang of punks, I was like, hell yeah.
Or as I called them, me and my friends in high school, and what we desperately wished we looked like.
And as I called them, the gang that we need to get together today.
I mean, one of the best walking scenes of all time is their intro. So
hell yeah. But also, before we get into it, I need you to look up a picture of Freddie Freaker right now.
Okay. All right. Give me a second. Okay.
Need to get your live reaction.
Oh, God. No, don't update Chrome right now. Not right now. No. Okay, I stopped it. Oh, God. Yeah, but accurate. So
call 199-190-0490 freak.
Well, that happens. Thanks.
Yeah, that was the
Our friendship is over now.
I think you mean it is enhanced.
Yeah.
Now that I've shown you the masterpiece.
It's true. But yeah, should we dive into the movie? Full spoilers, everybody.
Yes. Well, I mean, I just summarized the movie.
But now we're going in detail.
Spoilers. So. We're going into the Cape Fear.
Spoilers ahead.
After we have a couple of guest episodes, it's always nice coming back to just us.
Like a fun little reset, you know. Yeah. But we open on the medical supply company where we just meet a bunch of charming character actors, and I love it.
Yeah.
I would, honest to God, watch the version of this movie that is a play that is just Fred and Frank and like their reactions to things, and you just hear noises from like outside the building. I love them together so much. This punk and this old man.
I loved everybody in this movie played it so well.
They did a great job. Well, part of the secret is that on paper, most of the stuff in this movie, if you think about it, doesn't read as comedy. Mm-hmm. So a number of the actors, when they signed on, at least until like halfway through filming, didn't understand that they were in a horror comedy.
Mm.
So they all just play it so straight, and it works so well.
That's why it's good.
Yeah. Most comedy works better if you play it like it's real.
Yeah, like the way everybody delivered dialogue was just so good.
It's so perfect. Like, hey, you ever see that movie Night of the Living Dead?
What was it Bert said on the way out? What the weekend? What did he say? I wrote it down for my end of the movie quote, or end of the podcast quote, but then suicide came along, so I had to change it.
Because everything he says is great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we meet them, and they do this movie does a great job of just like setup and payoff, because they immediately start up setting up every single thing that's going to be like, this will be a cool effect later, don't you worry.
Yeah.
And then they open that gas canister. Like, it all just happens like boom, boom, boom. This movie moves, dude.
Yeah, like the thing that I was like, what's gonna happen? Because they chopped up the zombie right away and like tossed him in the crematorium. So I was like, what zombies? Where are they? And then it started smoking in the sky. I was like, oh.
Yeah. One thing about the yellow Freddie Freaker, the yellow zombie. I love like the little details in this movie because when they're
just the image of that zombie, he looks like the Prometheus fucks.
But I love when they're cutting his head off, and you can hear when they get to a certain point, the vocal cords start distorting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's such a great detail. He's like, so and then it just stops. It's so good. Or like, when everything is reanimating and the butterflies pinned to the wall start flapping their wings.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's so good.
The cut in half dogs coming back to life.
Oh, I love it.
That was terrifying.
Yeah. I love it, man. This movie's so good.
But they almost committed the cardinal horror movie sin in Zach's rule book, but they didn't. He tried killing the half
You can't.
dog.
It's the perfect good boy, Zach. You can't kill it in a horror movie.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm here for. It's like the most unique zombie dog ever, because normally it's like it gets all like creepy and beast-like, and it's just half a dog barking on the floor.
But it's like just like a happy good dog. I love it.
Yeah.
Like, it's stuff like that. This movie is here to show you things you've never seen before.
Yeah.
One last great thing about Freddie Freaker. Did you notice that the effects on him didn't seem as good as the rest of this movie?
Mm-hmm. You mean
that's
naked man painted yellow?
That I don't have an issue with. I'm talking once he loses his head. If you look, they're just not like. All right, this is a fairly low budget movie, but even for a low budget movie, they're pretty bad. Apparently, they had hired a makeup effects artist who swore up and down he could do everything they required. They get to set, they get prepping to like do the headless zombie, and they can't back out of filming this scene that day at that point because movies are expensive. And the dude had just lied and didn't know how to do effects makeup. And like, but they were like, well, we have to shoot with this now. And then later, luckily, they got to go back and do pickups with like an actual like dummy with a like no head. That's why that looks good. But like when they're tackling the body, it is clearly just a body wrapped in yellow, where they wrap the head in like yellow tape. It's so terrible, and I love it.
God.
And they were just like, well, we have to leave it in the movie now, or we're fucked.
You better not only draw Tarman but Freddie Freaker.
Hell yeah.
Why isn't there an entire line of merch for that guy?
Right?
Fucking Prometheus looking ass.
I'm just gonna exclaim that at people now. You fucking Prometheus looking ass.
Bald head ass Prometheus looking ass.
But then from there, yeah, we get to meet the best parts of this movie. All the punks show up.
I was a little disappointed. I wanted more like punks v zombies, like fighting them with chains and cool punk stuff.
But just the fact that the punks aren't the bad guy in a movie from the 80s is pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, they get to actually be characters. Yeah. And this is my own little soapbox here. Fuck racist punks. I love that one of these punks is Miguel A. Munoz Jr. He's a great actor. Fuck racism. He's awesome.
I mean, that's the thing in horror movies too. The black guy always dies first, but he made it to the end.
Yeah.
Is this one of the first movies to do that?
Typically, actually, not to get all white nerd on this, but the black guys almost never die first, but they almost never make it to the end. Typically, that's because they're playing smaller supporting characters because you can't cast them to lead because because of racism. to be blunt about it,
Yeah.
But I love that he's there. He's a great character. It just makes me very happy that they're like, no, there can be a black punk.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, love his mullet. Love everything about Spider.
I mean, he was the most punk. He had a sledgehammer and made it to the end.
Just wrecking
Meanwhile,
shop, man.
Suicide just got his brain eaten.
Went out like a bitch.
Yeah, Suicide did go out like a bitch. Just let the little tar man just go.
Suicide's a dick though, and I love him. But everything that Suicide says is great. I love that there's just 2 new waivers and 1 normal person with all these punks.
and like the punks like make fun of the new waivers.
Yeah, they clearly hate them. But they also seem to not like each other.
Yeah, they're just hanging out with each other because they're all the outcasts.
And then we come to what might be the second most iconic thing about this movie after Tarman, Linnea Quigley's naked graveyard dance.
I liked how she started talking about, like, you ever think about how you could die, and Spider's just in there like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, my note was just like, man, goth chicks are weird. But then they play one of my favorite songs. They play Dance Until You Die by 45 Graves, who I have in fact seen play live.
Is there a punk band you haven't seen live?
There are a few, yes. A lot of them are dead.
I like how that's the excuse.
But
Oh, yeah, well,
otherwise, I'd be on it, man. Yeah, I saw them open for the Reverend Horton Heat. It was great. That's a sentence that meant nothing to most people, but especially Zach.
But yeah, so naked Ronald McDonald was dancing.
Yeah. I love that when she's talking about dying, she sets up her own death later when she's like, wouldn't it be great to be torn apart by old men? And you're like, oh man, what a weirdo.
The second that came out of her mouth, I was like, well, she's going to get eaten.
Yeah. Yep.
That's apparent.
But I love... Okay, don't get me wrong. It is clearly lascivious and sexist to have a woman dance around naked and everything. But I love that the characters are so like, Trash does this all the time. Like, they don't even care.
Especially Suicide. He's just like, fuck this shit, man. This is stupid.
What are you doing?
You're gonna get a cold.
Yeah. Also, like, oh man, like, she's outside. It's like dirty. Like, put some pants on. This, like, I'm like, oh no.
Like, the only one who was into it was the creepy new wave guy.
And even he was like, and I'm moving on from this pretty quick. This is weird.
Yeah. Accurate response.
Yeah. But we just get to know these punks for a while, and they're like a good time, and I love it. Yeah. Like, this movie does a really good job of just being like, you're gonna like everybody, so that later it's really upsetting. And then we meet, I believe, your favorite character, Zach. We meet Ernie.
Oh yeah, he's the best. He's the only one who knew what he was doing.
I love that he has like a German like World War II gun. Like,
oh, obviously someone's got to have a gun. So obviously it's the mortician who deals with exclusively dead people.
I just love the little detail that it's like a weird World War II gun instead of just like a handgun. Like,
that's gonna be me as an old guy, just like chilling out with a World War II gun, drinking coffee at 2 a.m.
Hell yeah!
You're gonna come over and you're like, so I need to burn a body.
I knew this day would come.
You owe me though. Oh god!
I love everything about Ernie though. I love that when the zombie rips his pants, he just cuts them off.
Yeah, he's got to fit in with the punks, dude.
Hell yeah! And then everything goes to hell. They burn the body. Acid rain catches the smoke, and I feel incredibly bad for Linnea Quigley.
Yeah.
for trash.
Yeah.
Because she's like, it burns. That's why you wear pants, man.
Why you wear clothes just in general. Oh, Matt thought that was so funny. He just threw
Sorry,
his mic out the window.
I started coughing, so I turned off my mic. But yeah, and here's where like it's still funny, but it starts to become like a real horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's actually like really good at the horror stuff.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate that.
I like the whole thing with the zombie that they captured and started talking to it, and the zombie was like, "I'm in pain. I can feel myself decaying, and eating brains is the only thing to make it stop."
Well, there's an interesting link there because the writer-director of this film was Dan O'Bannon. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he also wrote Alien. And Dan O'Bannon actually suffered from debilitating Crohn's disease, which is incredibly painful, specifically in your stomach. And sometimes eating certain things can help with it, but it feels like something is clawing its way out from the inside, much like the chest burster from Alien and the incredible pain from this movie. It's this weird vein that runs through a lot of his work, and I think that's like super interesting.
Real life horror.
Yeah, but I think it's kind of what gives him this weird view on these horror movies and like how to like have a perspective on like it's why his movies, like the stuff that's painful is like painful.
Yeah,
you know,
like the monsters just want the pain to stop.
Yeah. Well, and then like, Fred and Frank and the rigor mortis starts setting in is so upsetting to watch. Especially then when Frank puts himself in the crematorium.
Takes off his wedding ring and says sorry. I was like, oh no.
But yeah, around here, the punks finally get in with the what did you call them? The crematorium gang?
Crematorium crew.
Crematorium crew, thank you. Yes. Except for Suicide, who is dead.
And the new wave ones are still back at the warehouse.
Oh yes, they're trapped at the warehouse. Because now everything has just gone to shit, and we get my favorite bit in the whole movie when they kill the paramedics. Send more paramedics.
Zombie says that into the dispatch.
Yeah, it's the best. I love it. I love that the zombies in this, like the zombie rules at this point, there actually haven't been like a ton of zombie movies outside of George Romero. So there's no real rules yet. He has his rules, but as a genre, it hasn't cemented really until this point in the 80s. It kind of starts to, which is unfortunate because it kind of closes the door on like weird creative stuff like this movie has, where it's like killing the brain doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Why would it matter? They're already dead. Yeah. Like,
and it's like, the movie lied?
Oh, that's so good. Because there's the great meta moment early on in this movie where they say, oh, well, Night of the Living Dead happened. It's just that they made some of it up. We had to change it or the government would come after us.
Yeah.
And speaking of, the government does come after them. I love how much this movie, by the way, hates the fucking government.
Well, it's like, that's always the thing in these zombies movies. It's like, of course the government would just nuke wherever it happens. Like, that's what they would do.
Easiest cleanup. Oh, but we also get, speaking of heartbreaking zombie transformations, Freddy. Oh my God. When Freddy starts to be like, Tina, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. Just come down here. Come on. It's so scary.
Jack Torrance much.
Yeah. It is so effective because the smartest thing Dan O'Bannon does with this movie is we like all of these people.
Yeah.
It's a thing I've talked about a lot on this podcast, but if you craft like good, likable characters, when the shit hits the fan, we'll actually care. It's what allows him to really turn like hot and cold faucets. Like I'm going to turn it on the comedy. I'm going to turn it back off. You know, I love it. Like, it's so good, and the soundtrack is banging.
They turned the keyboard to spooky when there wasn't
Hell
punk
yeah,
music
man.
playing.
And this movie, I think, gets the punk stuff right in a way that a lot of movies don't. Now, I say that as someone who is not a punk themselves, so perhaps I am wrong. I do like Coldplay, so I'm sure all the punks hate me. But you know, like, there's a string of nihilism to these characters that I think there really was in the 80s punk scene that runs throughout this whole movie. Like, there are no happy endings. You know, the government will just betray you. They will just blow you up. I love that when someone says we should call the cops, the punks say, no, they just beat us up.
Yeah.
Like, that's so great.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, most movies just treat them as villainous punchlines, you know?
Yeah, like they're the school bully.
Yeah, when in reality, they were probably more likely to get beat up by the school bully, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this movie, man. It's just a good time.
Yeah, that's what the second those punks showed up, I was like, yep, this is the movie. It just reminds me of Creep Show and Body Bags.
Yeah, it's just fun. Trick or Treat is in there too, I think. Of just like, look, you're gonna get scared sometimes, but really, it's a roller coaster. Sit back, have a good time. But let's talk a little bit about the making of this film, Zach, shall we?
Tell me how Prometheus looking ass was made.
I did tell you that already. Bandages and yellow body paints.
Oh, okay. Yeah, in my head, you told me that before we started recording, so it's like, you haven't told the people yet.
Sorry.
Yes, you have.
But this movie comes about in a really weird, interesting way, because technically, even though George Romero didn't make this movie, it is a legitimate sequel to Night of the Living Dead. I think a lot of people just assume, since Night of the Living Dead is in like public domain, that this movie must have been just like, oh, it's public domain, we can just use it. You know, we'll just reference it. But actually, this movie is produced by John A. Russo, who was the co-writer of Night of the Living Dead. And he and George Romero had a little bit of a falling out after that movie. They became friends later in life again, but they made a deal where George Romero could make any zombie movie he wanted, but he had to call it Of the Dead. That's why the official sequels to Night of the Living Dead are Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Land of the Dead. And what John A. Russo got was he got Of the Living Dead, which is why this movie is Return of the Living Dead. And he immediately set out writing a script for Return of the Living Dead, because he knew that movie sold so well, I can sell this to any fucking studio.
Yeah.
And apparently, without George Romero, it was a terrible script. It, like, people have said, like, oh, it was like borderline unreadable. It was trying so hard to be dramatic. It was trying so hard to be like edgy, the way that like Night of the Living Dead was so effortlessly. Like, clearly, like, the edginess of that movie, like, you need a Romero who just understands why that works. You know? So then instead, John A. Russo hires Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon is a fascinating dude, and I will get to him in a little bit. But he comes up and he says, like, well, you're doing it wrong. Like, Night of the Living Dead is one of the definitive, like, serious horror movies with something on its mind. This should be a comedy.
Yeah.
And just rewrites the script from the ground up. Immediately the movie gets like picked up and greenlit, and they're off to the races. The movie was a bit of a difficult shoot, lots of rain, a naked person. Although Linnea Quigley said she was totally comfortable on set, that everybody was really cool about it. And she's also like, she is a scream queen. She's in a ton of horror movies, mostly low budget and mostly where she's naked. So she was like totally fine with it.
It's my
the one
thing.
trouble. Yeah. The one trouble that they did have was, of course, the day she got naked, mysteriously, a bunch of the producers and like studio execs wanted to show up to set and check on them, which is gross. But But they got there, and she's like fully nude.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a bush. And they said that is too graphic.
What?
So they sent her and had her shave it off, apparently. And she came back, and they're like, oh my God, that's worse. So then she had to wear like a merkin the whole shoot.
Have they never seen one before?
Right?
Do you realize that is covering
you want
it?
this? They requested that this kind of nudity be in this movie because they were like, it's an exploitation film. You know, like that's what sells tickets. Like the running joke between Linnea Quigley and Dan O'Bannon was like, wow, if we knew this, that scene was going to be so popular, we would have put you in the movie more. Like, but apparently they didn't, and they're, they want the exploitation without the reality, and that's just not possible. People are terrible. But Dan O'Bannon, not always so great. When Tina breaks through the third stair, again, setup and payoff in this movie is fantastic. He didn't tell her that stair was going to break.
Oh, no.
And later when she like limps into the freezer, because that was all done as like one take, essentially, she actually like fucked up her leg.
Jeez.
Like really bad. Apparently, like she went off the set, like they did one take where she runs and she makes herself trip. And this set got very quiet. And she was outside, and they took out the step and changed it. And then they called her back in, and they were all like, don't tell me. We want a real reaction, which always makes me so mad because it's like, she's an actress. Just let her act.
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's pretend. Like,
God.
Yeah. But now it's time to come to something I have a lot of strong feelings about nowadays. It's Dan O'Bannon and his career, because it's probably the only time we'll really cover him.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's okay. He is an artist I have a lot of feelings about. So get ready. If anybody wants to learn about Dan O'Bannon, I highly recommend the book Shock Value, which is all about like the early 70s horror and 80s horror auteurs. And it focuses actually a surprising amount on him in a way that most stuff about that period doesn't. And it's a really good read. Again, highly recommend. He actually came up with John Carpenter in college. They were like best friends, and he actually wrote John Carpenter's first movie, Dark Star, which is really cool that these two guys knew each other, except when you're making what was essentially amounted to a student film like Dark Star, really there's less of a division between like director and everybody else. Like it's just much more collaborative on that small of a movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter is, for better or worse, very much envisions himself, even at that young of an age, as an auteur. And that he is the driving force of the projects he's creating, which leads to some great things, but it also leads to things like every John Carpenter movie is titled John Carpenter's insert title. So this was John Carpenter's Dark Star, which didn't do super well, but for like a student film, it did very well. Essentially, they had started shooting it as like their thesis project, and then somebody said like, oh, some of the effects in this are pretty good. We'll give you more money making a feature. Also, all of the effects done by Dan O'Bannon, who also worked on things like Star Wars. Like he was a great effects guy.
Oh.
Yeah, he did like some of the early digital stuff for Star Wars. He like had a whole like effects pitch for Alien when he wrote it. Stuff like that. Like he was really great at some stuff and a pretty good writer. But they have a falling out because in the press, Dan O'Bannon starts saying like, I love John, but I think it's a little unfair that this movie is thought of as John Carpenter's film when really we all made it. And some of us pretty much directed scenes because they were special effects stuff, which I have mixed feelings about as a statement. But I kind of see where he's coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like on Psycho, like who really directed the shower scene.
Yeah, but even more like with what amounts to a student film that they made for like under $1 million, everybody did everything.
Yeah.
And Dan O'Bannon wasn't just saying like, I should get more credit. He was saying like, we should all get more credit, but John wants the credit.
Mm.
Which isn't wrong. But then apparently John Carpenter like called him and said like, come over to our house, we're having lunch. Sat him down and said like, well, we're never going to speak again. How dare you say this stuff to press about me? And I think our collaboration is over, even though we've been working together for like all of college. And just never looked back. And apparently they talked mad shit on each other's movies all the time.
Oh man.
Because I mean, The Thing and Alien have pretty similar concepts when you really think about it.
Yeah.
And John Carpenter described Alien as a film that was so poorly written, Ridley Scott had to save it. And Dan O'Bannon said, man, Rob Bottin's effects in The Thing are so great. Don't you wish it was for a better movie?
Ooh.
Just stuff like that all the time. So Dan O'Bannon never really got a fair shake because I think he just shot himself in the foot because he really thought he should be an auteur on the level of someone like John Carpenter or Ridley Scott, like these guys that he had worked with. And it just never quite happened for him. And it kind of breaks my heart when there's these dudes who are like right on the cusp and can just never quite make it over. You know what I mean? He worked so hard on so many different things because he also wrote Total Recall. Like I said, he worked on Star Wars. He worked a lot on TV. And I feel like even in the Alien franchise, a thing that he indisputably created, it was his idea to hire H.R. Geiger to design the alien. People kind of talk about Dan O'Bannon like, yeah, I guess he wrote it or whatever. And it kind of bums me out. But apparently it's also because he was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
You know? But like a lot of artists are dicks. Yeah. Stanley Kubrick was a monster and we all still worship Kubrick, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of bums me out that people don't think about Dan O'Bannon enough. And the line in this book that absolutely broke my heart was Dan O'Bannon died relatively young. He passed away in 2009. And the book just says like, Dan O'Bannon died in 2009 and John Carpenter wouldn't attend his funeral. And it just broke my heart, you know? Like after all that, like you'd think I'm going to set it aside for a day, and they just couldn't at the end of everything, you know?
Yeah.
But I think he's a fascinating figure, and we need to talk about Dan O'Bannon more. Sorry to bring it down, but
thought this was a fun movie.
It is a fun movie, but it's also a movie that truly is an auteur's vision.
Yeah.
Like, because if you look at like Alien, like the only reason people are like Alien is, I'm trying to remember who summed it up best. They said, Alien is a B movie premise filmed like an A movie. Like the script for Alien is much funnier and sillier and has a much better time if you really look at it. It's just that Ridley Scott really drew out the pace and made it feel like a haunted house. And like he really does take that movie and make it a Ridley Scott film. Whereas I feel like this is exactly the movie Dan O'Bannon always wanted to make. It's a cool exploitation-y B movie that's just here to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has this line of his own pain running through it, like a real, like an artist, you know. Not that pain makes you a real artist. I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this movie. For better or worse, I love Dan O'Bannon, and I'm sorry, Dan, but John Carpenter's still a better director.
Yeah. This is the John Carpenter podcast. So
it really is. John, come on anytime.
Yeah.
We know you're listening.
I've tagged you on Instagram, John. Make that Darth Vader movie.
Hell yeah. But yeah, Zach, do you have any closing thoughts on this film?
Same thing as like Body Bags and Creepshow. It just felt like the Halloween episode of a normal show, which is fun.
Just a good time.
I don't have nostalgia for horror movies, obviously, because I didn't grow up with them. But watching this makes me feel nostalgic.
Yeah, it just reminds you of everything that's good about these kinds of movies.
Yeah,
or at least that's what it does for me. And this was one of the few horror movies I saw like before I was like, well, I'm into horror now, because somebody said like, oh, you'll love the soundtrack. And they were correct.
And now I know what Tarman is, so that's a plus.
Yeah. Now you can buy that cool pin or t-shirt you've been wanting.
I mean, I haven't been wanting it. I was just confused what it's from. And now we traded off. You know what Freddie Freaker is.
I know. Everybody learned something today. Everybody Google Freddie Freaker and get upset.
You're welcome, Internet.
Oh, God. All right, but I think that just about does it for us here at the good old Matt Makes Zach Watch Horror Movies. Zach, where can everybody find you?
You can find me as Zach Shirk on Instagram, and that's it. What about you, man?
You can find me on just about everything as I Draw Paintings, or over on my Facebook artist page, Matt Mears. And I also stream on Twitch now. It's still I Draw Paintings, just drop the S.
And on that note, what do you think? This is a fucking costume? It's a lifestyle. Bye.
Bye.
As the Vox fades, we thank you for listening to this bizarre journey into cinema. If your morbid curiosities hunger for more, you may summon our horror bros at mattmakeszach.com, on Twitter and Instagram at macmakeszach. Or if you dare, say George Lucas 3 times into a mirror for a visit from our phantom menaces. You may now return to your mortal plane of existence. Until next week, as Matt makes Zach sit through another chilling apparition. Mwah!